Hey guys, I wanted to share with you guys a little bit of what Mikal and I have been going through. Um, I'll definitely give you guys an opportunity to hop in because this is a very crucial subject, especially for those of us who are in relationships or married, or I mean, if you have relationships with people on a daily basis, I mean, and close relationships, these are things you should know anyway. But so let me give you a little backstory. So pretty much since we have been dating, we have had some variable or some element of counseling or yeah, pretty much counseling. People speaking into our lives, people teaching us how to walk out our marriage. Um, Most people jump into a relationship or marriage and they kind of just feel their way through in the darkness, and they just think that they can resolve their issues on their own. And from my experience, I can tell you that that never worked for me. It was always something that ended in heartache. And when I decided that Mikal was the woman I was going to marry, that was something that would have to change. And that was something that I would have to reconcile with, because it was a problem within me as well. Because you know, humility always has to play a part in it, and we like to think that we can do no wrong, or maybe it's the other person that has the issue rather than you. Um, the truth is, you both have issues, and you can step all over each other if you're not careful in understanding those things. So, a term that has really resonated with me is, we have stepped on each other's hurt. And if you just think about that, that in itself sounds painful. If you've ever broken a bone or you've ever hurt something and someone were to step on it, like I've broken this arm in half, and if someone were to step on it as it was broken, that would be excruciating. Not only would you be suffering the trauma of the event, the hurt that has currently happened, but you would also have an additional force on top of it. It could feel like the weight of the world, tons of pain signals. So it's not fun. And I wouldn't recommend that. So I want to kind of touch a little bit on what we've dove into. So, like I said, we've been doing counseling pretty much since the beginning. I'm very open and honest and transparent about that because I'm an advocate for counseling. Every one of us should have it. We should have it for ourselves. We should have it in relationships. We should have an outside voice speaking into our lives and kind of redirecting, because we can become very biased. We can follow our own selves, our own wills, even to destruction. And that is not the goal for me in marriage. I want to have a happy, loving, a joyful marriage. So I lean into what the Word of God says. And the Word of God says that there is wisdom in seeking plethora of counselors, there's wisdom in seeking accountability. So these are areas that I I've incorporated into my life, and it wasn't something that came overnight. In my early 20s, I was definitely the guy who thought I could figure everything out and had the world in my hand, and I could make all these decisions, and I didn't need anybody to tell me anything. As I've grown older, I've realized that the younger I was, the more I didn't know. There's a country song that says, "Do everything while you're young, and you still know it all," and that's just not the way it is. So, what we've come to in our recent counseling, where we're doing this thing called Healing Hearts, and this is designed to kind of dive back into our past, our childhoods, and discover what those hurts are, For example, maybe you have a family where you come from, your dad was not there, your mom was not there. Maybe mom or dad worked a ton. Maybe mom or dad were not affirming. Um, you know, every one of us has some semblance of a hurt that originally there comes from our parents. They're um, our first worldly influences, and they're not perfect, and they've made a mistake somewhere along the line, um, and that's just something we have to recognize. And we're gonna do the same thing because we're not perfect. I have a good friend of mine who shared a quote with me. It's not if we're gonna hurt our children, but how we're gonna hurt our children. And it's just a sad reality of the fallen world we live in, because we will hurt our children in some way or another. But my goal is to do whatever I can to avoid hurting my daughter as much as possible. So we've been going through this Healing Hearts ministry, and in Healing Hearts, the key for us is not stepping on each other's hurt. So how do we avoid stepping on each other's hurt? Well, for one, it requires being open. It requires opening up, telling each other about our past, not just the good parts, but the parts where we were hurt, the parts where someone did wrong to us. That was not anything that, of our own making, but somebody wronged us. We all have those hurts, whether it's a past relationship, whether it's people who made fun of you in school, whether it's something your parents did, your siblings did, any one of us, we all have these hurts that a lot of us just gloss over, or, we just have, swept it under the rug because we felt like that happened like 30 years ago, 20 years ago. I mean, what difference does it make? Well, some of those things still affect us to this day. I mean, I'm sure any one of you can pick out a nickname that you may have been called in school, that people used to make fun of you for. I remember being made fun of this time I got a haircut, and people used to be like, "Oh, your edge up looks like a snake." Or, I was always wearing red shoes, even though I didn't have any other shoes but these red shoes. So I would wear different outfits, and I would have these crazy red shoes on all the time. People would be like, "Where's the red?" Making fun of it. Those are memories that resonate. I mean, I was like fourth grade, and I still remember this. And every one of us has these things. So, the first step in all of this, anyway, is to identify those memories, identify those hurts, and how we felt, what those things did to us. How they affected us for the long term. For me, I'm high discipline, and that comes from a sense of not feeling like I ever did enough. That can come from, maybe parenting, where, your parents were great, but maybe they weren't the affirming kind of parents. Or that can come from, maybe people never telling you that what you did was good enough. So that's just one area where a hurt can lead into your adult life. And it can lead into thoughts of, like, I can't do anything right, or, if it's not perfect, then I shouldn't go into it, or I can't, I'm always messing something up, because we have that perfectionist mentality because of something from the past that led us to this extremely high order of discipline, which can be good, but can also be unhealthy if it's used in the wrong way. So identifying hurts is definitely a huge part of this, and that's the second part. First part is being open about our past and our hurts and sharing that with each other. And the second part is identifying exactly what hurt and why. We have to identify that so that we can know when someone is stepping on that hurt, or in your love life with your partner, you can know when you're stepping on their hurt. Maybe they had a tumultuous childhood, and they experienced a lot of insecurity, and you coming home a little bit late, later than normal. Maybe they go into an anxiety frenzy, and you're kind of going back and forth. Oh, I didn't do this. Well, it's not a matter of what you've done, but it's a matter of a hurt that they've experienced in the past, and now they have anxiety over whether or not or when you may be getting home. So that's just something you want to identify, so that you can do the third step in what we've learned in this Healing Hearts, and that's love into the hurt. Loving into the hurt can be difficult, as we all have these emotions, and we all want to kind of feed ourselves. This is where it becomes more than about yourself. This is where it becomes about the other person and loving them in their hurting area. The reason that hurt is still there is because no one has actually ever spoken into it. No one's actually ever spoken life and love into that area. So affirming them, if they are a person who never felt like they've measured up to something, early in the morning, every day, telling them, hey, I accept you just the way you are. That is a powerful statement. Telling them, hey, I love you regardless of what happens today, regardless of what you do. Those are powerful statements, and that's truly loving into that hurting area. So this is something that we should practice with each other. This is something that we should really share with each other, and it grows your relationship over time. Now, a lot of us have these hurts, and we've been hanging on to them for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And it takes more than one instance of doing this. It's like a muscle. You have to work it. And it's not going to happen with one repetition, but just with continual repetitions of, hey, I love you regardless of what happens today. Hey, to me, I love you. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything different. You don't have to change who you are. And those words breathe life into each other. Those words breathe life into your spouse, and they make for a much more joyful household, a much more loving household that everyone can benefit from. It's not just you and your peace of mind, but the person that you're in relationship with, your child. It just benefits the whole. So those are the three areas that I wanted to cover, guys. Is opening up about your hurts, even if it's painful, sharing that, talking through it with your loved one so they can understand exactly why you're hurt. Because if they don't understand why you're hurt, they can't speak love into it. So opening up and being transparent is the very first step. The second part is identifying, okay, this memory hurt me. Well, why did it hurt me? Okay, what is that hurt? What was the repercussion of that event? Maybe you got made fun of like I did for what you wear, and now all of a sudden, your self-image has to be immaculate. Well, identify that hurt and identify where it comes from. And then the third part is to love into that hurt. Maybe if you're that affirming spouse, or that spouse that needs to be affirmed, somebody saying, hey, you know what? I love you regardless of what you wear, regardless of if you have bad head, regardless of all these things, I love you. And it doesn't matter. These things are the things that breathe life into a relationship, and they breathe life into it for long term. And they avoid a lot of turmoil that you may encounter in a relationship simply because you are experiencing the hurt from their past that has nothing to do with you. So what I want to leave you with as far as marriage tips. Again, this is just coming from a guy who's walking through this season. and who has sought out a lot of counseling, because I want to make sure that I tend to my marriage and my family continually, and that's not something that stops. I will probably always be in some form of counseling with my wife, with my daughter, just because it is, that maintenance work on our relationship. I don't ever want to get to a place where our relationship grows stale or dies. I want to get ahead of that as much as possible. And I want us to have the most successful relationship that I could possibly have. So if that's your heart, if you want to actually love into your spouse, if you want to enjoy your marriage, enjoy your relationships, because after this part is the real fun stuff. If that's what you want, then I would encourage you to do the same. But that's what I got to say today, guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. If you got any comments, if you have any counseling experience yourself, if you can speak into this subject, please leave a comment below. I would love to hear it. But till next time, guys, make moves and not excuses. God bless.